attention. All right, thank you for coming to our next Art on Our Mind talk. Today's session is dedicated to filmmaker Shelley Barry, who's originally from Port Elizabeth. She spent a lot of time in the Western Cape and in Johannesburg as well. She's currently a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. And like I said, it's really an honor to stage this mini retrospective because you have so much more work than this at Rhodes University. That was the first time I even said those words. Rhodes University, okay. Sorry, the university is still currently shamelessly known as Rhodes. And in conversation with Shelley Barry is Beverley Barry. They are cousins. And Beverley is a key member of the Art on Our Mind team, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to have two women who are even related in conversation with each other, and I'm hoping that that wonderful intimacy will come through. Just a few notes again, you can have a look online at the Art on Our Mind website. For our other talks, our creative theorization panel last year with Kumla Gola, Yvette Abrams, Nilika Jawadina, and Betty Govindan on creative theorization and its potentials. With Senzeni Makasela, a full discussion with Non-Tobacco and Tumbela, and Non-Tobacco and Tumbela in conversation with Reshma Chiba. So these two talks will now be archived as well in the months to come. Also just to note that Shelley Barry's videos and films are on sale. If you are interested in them, you can order them. There's a list that you can make an order. There's a rough guideline of 100 rands, but I hear it's an incredibly rough guideline, so it's very negotiable. Shelley is very cognizant of the fact that we can't always afford these things, and actually there's no way we could have even afforded to bring Shelley and the keynotes here to Afems, except the fact that they waived any kind of fee to be here. So we really are thankful for that, and I can't wait for it.
Okay, are you ready now? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And I want to first say thank you for being here and being part of this conversation. More than anything, thank you to Shelley, whom Shelley and I call the wizard. You can think about that yourself, what that means. And then also, and the Art on Our Mind teams, that has been a great support to us. And then also a great thank you to Linda, who is part of this, and the Okapi team. So thanks for that. And we call Linda the Wise Counsel. So thanks. Yeah, we give each other names all the time, yeah. So thanks for being here. And I think, as you know, this is part of the Art on Our Mind series. And as Charlene spoke about it yesterday, it's about Bell Hook's book, Art on My Mind, and I think we're just exploring the art and the visualities of the making and thinking of your work, Shell. So be very comfortable. So I think what is important for us is a kind of a way of just processing and going through this. One of the images I have is what Pumla speaks in one of her articles. She speaks about our expressions of will. And I think of this conversation as our dance of thinking and feeling and imagining. So that's kind of the framework that I'm working with. So Charles, as my cousin, where were you born and what did your parents do for a living?
So I was born in PE, not too far from here. What did my parents do? My mom was a teacher and my father was a bit of a jack of all trades. Mostly sold alcohol, actually. But he did lots of other things too. Yeah.
Okay, tell us some of those things. Like, what are some of the things that he did? He was a writer at one stage, a journalist,
racehorse writer, and a manager at the Golden Fountain, where I used to get free chips and mayonnaise.
Which is a disco in Port Elizabeth. Okay, and now, you know, our childhood for us, when we grew up, we had an absence of men in our families, because with the forced removals in the 60s, a lot of men died. So my question to you, Charles, is tell me about your childhood and women.
Okay. I was raised by my grandmother's grandmother and great-grandmother, and aunties, just very strong maternal line, and the women are very powerful, as you know, in the family. So I feel like I was raised by many women, all at the same time. Like,
And what effect did that have on you?
I think it taught me about community and appreciating the community of women. Yeah, and that women could always make things better. They could always heal things. Yeah.
Okay. Where did you go to school, and what influence did that have on you accessing art?
Okay, so my father won the jackpot in 1978 and sent me to a private school. Just for a few years while the jackpot lasted. Holy Rosary Convent. But what was great about that was that they taught art. We had art classes and drama classes, and I think that's really influenced me a lot as well. Like, to know that creativity was like a thing you could do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you experience other forms of art and creativities outside of your school or in your life generally?
Yeah, well, my uncle Michael Barry is an artist.
Yes.
So I was always aware that of art all around me, because he was always painting. So he was a big influence, I'd say.
And your mum, she also does art?
Yes, she does. Arts, crafts, and chef of note, yeah.
Okay. Okay, now in one of the interviews, Leap of Faith, your father, who we call Papa, he speaks about the concert at home.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Now how does this work, and what did you do with the concert at home?
So I used to always gather my cousins and direct them in various short films. Stage, we used to gather them and do a little stage play, just for fun, and then call the adults in and say, hey, we made something. And I think I was always a director, always in charge, shame.
Okay.
It started there, I think.
Okay. And what did you initially study after high school?
Theatre. I was the worst actress in the world. It was really bad. And I hated it, so I didn't know why I did it, but it was the closest thing I could come to film, I think, at the time. But then I found my space as a director, a theatre director.
Now, what's that story about how you found your space to be a director,
What do you mean?
You know, how did you come to see that you're not actually an actress?
Because I hated acting, but I really loved directing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I realized.
Okay.
People were very grateful.
Okay, and then, so you went to high school, and then after that you went to the University of Cape Town, yeah, and then what happened after that?
And then I went to UWC, and then to Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you do at UWC and in
My
Japan?
honors English, yeah.
Okay, and Japan?
I taught English.
Okay. So in 1986, just before Shelley went over to Japan,
96.
she called me, sorry about that, she called me and said to me that she thinks that she's going to die. And a kind of a thought came to my mind, and I said to her, maybe you're not going to die. Maybe you're going to be transforming so that, afterwards when you come to the other side, you're not going to be the same. You're going to be unrecognizable to yourself. And then you came back from Japan, and then you had the accident. Can we talk about that? Okay, let's talk about that.
It's so weird that you remember that conversation, because I just had this premonition that I'm going to die. And I thought I have to tell someone, just in case it comes true. Then they'll say, she knew. And so I told Bev, because we've always been very close. So yeah, in 1996, it was January in Cape Town. I used to always travel by minibus taxi. And at the time, unfortunately, it still continues up to this day, there are turf wars between the various taxi organizations, and the driver was driving our van. He was driving on someone else's route. So they assassinated him. It was a planned assassination, and they basically drove up right next to us at the traffic lights and shot at point blank range. Shot him 7 times. I was next to him, and I was shot. I was shot in the process, and my partner at the time, because they just also shot randomly, and then they even drove forward and turned around and shot through the front window too. But luckily, I had slumped to the side from the first shot, and that saved my life, I think. And I remember everything in slow motion. It's amazing how, when you're dying, things just go slow. And I thought, shit, this is it, eh? This is it. I prayed, I was like, forgive all my sins, Lord. And I just knew I'm going to die. But then miraculously I didn't, and it really was a miracle, because the doctors said there's no way. There's no way, they couldn't figure it out. They just didn't understand. How did this girl survive, So I definitely am meant to be here, that much I know. But the most beautiful thing of it all was that I got a glimpse of heaven. That's why I'm so sure, people are heaven. I'm like, I saw it, it's pretty cool. Because I drifted into this other world. And yet could also see what was happening here, but I wasn't in my body anymore. And I saw my ancestors and the stereotypical green rolling hills and all of that. It's true. And it was lovely, but I asked if I could come back. And I did.
Okay. What is spirit to you?
That's the thing with having conversations with Beverley, she gets so deep. Spirit. I think it's our essence. It's that place of perfect peace within us. Yeah.
Okay. So, Charles, when did art become an option for you? And I'm saying an option because, when we grew up in apartheid, it wasn't really an option. So at some point, it became an option. When was that moment for you?
Art specifically film, or just art in general?
Art in general, and then you can go into film as well. Like, when did those become options for you?
Yeah, so the first step was theatre and writing. I always wrote. And actually, you came to our school once and gave a drama workshop. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I went, after the jackpot ran out, I went to a government school. And there was no drama. So I created drama classes, and there was no hall So we used classrooms and staged plays during second break, which was hugely popular. So then, theatre was a thing. But I always wanted to be a filmmaker. I just didn't think that it would be possible. Because I didn't know where I would study it, how I would afford it. It just wasn't a thing that girls from Corsten did. So I thought, okay, I'll stick to theatre because it seemed to be more accessible. And it was only at the age of 32 that I got the chance to make film with a scholarship.
Okay. So you got a scholarship and you went to study. Tell us about that as well.
Yeah, so I got a scholarship from the Ford Foundation to study film in the States. I was the happiest. I was in absolute bliss. I was just like, wow. Because it took so long for the dream to come true, you know. And I just remember when I had my camera, like the first time I had a camera in my hand, you know, loaded. That time it was like loading super 16mm film in the dark, and I was like, oh, this is heaven. And I was like, I have 3 years here. I have 3 years to make stuff. I've got access to equipment. It was just, yeah, it was just brilliant. And I could barely sleep because I just wanted to keep making. Yeah, and a lot of my early work was made in that time. You know.
So your first one, Whole Trinity Being, which is playing at the back of us, that also has a theme of spirit, and for me it's about you are whole again. You are what you are, scars and all. And then I also find spirit in your other movies, Reincarnation, Retrato, Portrait, Nature, and Spirit in Meditation, and then of course New Brighton and New York. So what was your thinking in that movie? Like, you know, about spirit, all of that, spirit, God. It kind of seems to just, I pick it up, it's just so clear for me. It's like intuition, you know. What does that mean for you?
Well, I mean, I do see myself as someone that I have a dedicated spiritual practice. And the work definitely comes through me. And so a lot of the pieces are about healing. It's like, film for me is a tool for healing. So yeah, I mean, New York, New Brighton came from a dream. A dream, like actually like sleeping and then you dream. You know, I woke up, oh, it's a movie. And I dreamt of Jamaya, who's this West African goddess of the sea. And I didn't know who she was until I dreamt of her. When I woke up the next day, I told my partner about the dream, my partner at the time, and she was like, oh, that you dreamt about Yamaya. And I described her in detail and what she was doing. And she touched my hair in the dream, and she had a baby in her arm. And then I researched, and then I saw, oh, she comes in dreams. And all this, and I was like, wow. So that's kind of, I just listened to the inner world a lot in the making of the work. Yeah.
Okay. And then do you have a daily spiritual practice as an artist? And why is that important to you?
Yeah, I meditate a lot. And I think for me, meditation has saved my life in many ways. In high school, I had an English teacher who was always so serene and peaceful. And she tells me this story. She says, one day I came up to her and I said, I want to know where you get your peace from. And she said, well, are you prepared to give up second breaks? And I said, I am. You know, this was when we weren't doing the stage, the theatre shows. And she taught me to meditate under a tree. And that was such a beautiful gift. So when the shooting happened, and I was in ICU for many, many months. And of course it was very boring. At least I could meditate, you know. And for me, I've always been able to draw on that as a resource, because I always like to create. I feel like you need to empty your head, and you need to be still. So my practice, I meditate in the mornings, and for about 3 hours, if I can, at night, because I have to just be quiet and to be still. And because if I clutter my head too much, nothing comes. The work can't come. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so how did Trinity of Being help you understand visuality and the video medium as a conduit for personal narrations? For instance, the narrations of working out a new life, or in some ways a new identity. So tell us a bit about your visual choices you made in this movie that has, of course, also become iconic, no? In your work, like voicing, personal narrative, blurring, close shots, as a mode of intimacy or kind of visuality of bodily caressing.
So, A Whole Trinity of Being was the first film I made, and I didn't really know much about how to make films at the time, so it was very intuitive. I didn't plan, okay, yeah, I'm going to have an extreme close shot. Yeah, I'm going to do this, yeah, I'm going to do that. What I first wanted to explore was that I felt I needed to tell my own story before telling other people's stories. And I also wanted to explore moving in the chair. I almost broke the camera of the school because I had it between my knees facing down and was going down a ramp and it slipped. But I just wanted to start exploring what it's like to move on wheels with a camera. And then just items became important, like so the pin pricks came with that memory of the doctor going, can you feel this, can you feel it, can you feel it? So then the pin became the prop that sort of ignited that movie. And then my voice tube became the part for voiceover. I was like, I have to make something with this thing, you know? Because I was fascinated with it. I'm always fascinated by this thing that allows me to speak, you know. And that's how that came about. And then Entry, the last piece, we made it like in my room, pretty much, on a Saturday afternoon, and some parts of campus. So I was just playing with trying to tell the story, but not in a traditional way, like in 1996, while traveling, I wanted to tell it in a poetic way. And before I was a filmmaker, I was a poet. So that came into the way I made my first films. It was kind of visual poetry. I thought of it as visual poetry in a way. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Charles. Charles, talk to me about space, because at some point you have a manifesto there, which talks about space and one location and mobility, characters now. What's your manifesto?
Well, when I first started making films, I was very aware of access and where can I move around and where can I make films and is there an accessible bathroom nearby. And a lot of my fellow students didn't invite me on shoots because I think they probably thought, what's she going to do? Because she's not directing this piece, it was their piece. And secondly, it was like, it's not accessible for her, where we're shooting. So I just thought, well, to hell with this, I'm going to make films in my room, which I did. And then I created my own little manifesto, you know, like one location, shooting one day, editing one night, you know. And then I just created this whole thing, you know, and which was fun. It was a nice challenge, you know. And Trinity of Being, a lot of it is shot inside, well, except for a few scenes. Umbilical cord, that was 1 hour in a bath. You know, just a little. So I just made my own manifesto so that I could just make stuff, you know, that didn't rely on other people and didn't necessarily rely on going to many places. A lot of these films, that was shot in one room too. You know, so it's like how, the question I ask myself, and I always say this to filmmakers, people who want to make films, is I always ask myself, what can I make here? If I had this room for a day, what would I make here? And that's kind of the question that guided the early work anyway. Now I want lots of locations, now I want, you know. But yeah, it was fun to create within those confines, that the confines became something expansive instead of something limiting.
So you're basically working with what you have and creating beyond even your own imagination.
Work with what you have.
Work with what you have, Now, in We Are My Heels, which is this one here, and Stroll, it takes us through the black and white view from the wheelchair, from the perspective of a disabled person. And in Scroll, we can see the anguish of coping in the Russian world and always being one to say sorry. I call that one the sorry video, because it's sorry, can I move, sorry, can I move? And then with Where Are My Heels, that is both beautiful because they convey this relationship between youth, between a young child and women and dancing, and become very cognizant of a view of a child. What does a child see? And also that crippling relationship we have with high-heeled shoes. And the desire, and at 3 years old, tottering on those high-heeled shoes, the fun of it. What were your cinematic choices in those to convey the emotions?
Right. Well, I always used to carry a camera in my bag. Now we have our phones. Now I mainly shoot actually with my phone. But I was at this party in Puerto Rico in 2004, and I was a little bit bored with the party. But then this little girl was dancing and trying to navigate an adult world, and I just was so fascinated with her because we were on similar levels. She was 3 and I was sitting down. So I just took my camera out and just placed it in front of me and just observed. I shot the whole night and then cut it down to 6 minutes. Observed how she slowly took over the party. Slowly, in the beginning, she was very shy and just trying to get attention, and until she became like the center of attention. So I just basically followed her. But from where I was sitting, I didn't move around. I just sat in one place and shot, following her movement. So that was
it. And in Stroll, it reminds me of Yvette Adam. She talks about reading between the lines, or learning by doing, that kind of thing. So,
we want to talk about Stroll.
Yes.
So Stroll is where I take a camera on the streets of Manhattan and I film just moving around in the world. So when you're in a wheelchair, you're always saying you're sorry, or the people are always telling you you're sorry because you're always navigating your way and bumping into people, and people feel uncomfortable about being around you. So I filmed and filmed and filmed, and then I edited all the sorries together. All the people that just said they were sorry, and me saying I'm sorry. And so that was how I made that piece, and seeing how incredibly difficult it is to just move around, because stuff's in your way, and you're in everyone's way, and you've got this big chair, and the world isn't accessible, the world isn't made for you to move around in. So you're always it's I'm sorry I'm here, It's got that kind of feeling. So I wanted to make a piece about how people just move out of your way, or sorry. So that's what that's about.
The sorry story.
The sorry story.
The sorry story. Okay. Now you did some disability work in Parliament as well, and you met Nelson Mandela, etc., etc. Tell us about that, because that would not have been an easy space to work to move into, because Parliament was Parliament, and here we had our focus on disabilities. So maybe if you can talk about that.
So after hospital, I was unemployed because I had been a student at the time, and I just finished my honours. So I was unemployed and I was reading the Mail and Guardian, and then I saw this little advert saying that they're looking for a parliamentary disability coordinator. I was like, that's my job. Disability, I've got, And I went for the interview and they said, but now you've only been like a person with a disability for like 2 months, 3 months. So you're like, you don't have like the history. Experience of activism and in that time I was still learning how to speak again because my voice was also, I was using the tube. It was still new to me and you couldn't hardly hear me. So I was like whispering in the interview. And they're like, well, can you drive? And I was like, no, but just give me a month, I'll drive. They said they actually gave me the job because they couldn't believe my determination, my passion. And so it was quite amazing, and that changed my life because I was suddenly introduced into the world of disability activism, and I understood the politics of disability. That it's not about you, but it's about an environment that excludes you. And that was really cool to me. I was like, wow, people are having sex, they're driving, they're having fun, they're dancing, yeah. It's just like, whoa, there's a whole life here. And it was during the time of Mandela's presidency, and he wanted, for his 1997 State of the Nation address, he wanted people with disabilities to form the Guard of Honor instead of the military. And I was given that task to coordinate the Guard of Honor, which was really an amazing experience. And it was very revolutionary, because there we were all in our wheels and blind and deaf and, and along the red carpet, which was, and then he came to come and meet every single person afterwards and had tea with us, which was really cool. So I think that was one of the greatest days actually ever.
It's like being part of something that is larger than yourself.
Very much so. It was very powerful.
Okay.
Yeah. So the movement really changed the way I thought about things. Yeah.
Okay, and then you started your company, Two Spinning Wheels, and for me, that's the essence of your being, your work, and and so talk to me about what the challenges of being a cinematographer, an artist, an entrepreneur. I mean, we don't often think about art in terms of entrepreneurial, and in terms of skills development. And I'm naming these things because if you apply for funding nowadays as an artist, these are the kinds of things that you must do. You must be an entrepreneur, you must do skills development, training, etc., etc. So what was your challenges, because you took a huge risk for about 8 years?
I was so poor.
Two Spinning Wheels.
So bad. So I started Two Spinning Wheels and I just wanted to just be a filmmaker for a while, and but it wasn't easy because I don't exactly make margarine commercials, so my films are quite obscure and definitely not mainstream. So I really struggled to survive a lot. It was difficult, but it was an important time to be able to just have that experience of making. And what I did that I'm most proud of was I started teaching film. And that was wonderful. And UWC roped me in, Carnita and Desiree Lewis said, come and teach film at Women and Gender Studies. And that was incredible. I felt like total alignment to my purpose in life. And I found my other passion, which is teaching. I feel as passionately about teaching as I do about making. So that was so great. That was like the beginning of the film school thing, and just teaching other people to just go and make films. We had 4 little camcorders we got from Game, and like for me, we were like film school. So that was great, but eventually it became too difficult, and I was thinking, okay, you're getting older, darling. You need to start thinking about pension and retirement and medical aid and all of this stuff. And then I started applying for jobs, and it was between UCT and UJ, and I chose UJ. And I'm blissfully happy there, I must say. Really, really happy there.
Okay. So then you all started another company, Two Training Wheels.
Yeah.
You know, when you're learning how to ride a bike, you first start on a tricycle, 3 wheels. And then you do the 2 wheels and the 2, and those are the 2 training wheels, right? So tell me about that vision, because that was an exciting vision.
Yeah, so Two Training Wheels was my little film school that only ran for a year in Cape Town before I moved to Joburg. But it was about teaching outside of a university space and teaching video as a tool for activism, and for anyone to, if you wanted to learn how to make a film, I don't see why you can't. So I just started just teaching like people who were working in NGOs, young women. In fact, I made films with women in South-Department Center for Abused Women and Children. That was just a very powerful 3 months, and they couldn't leave the shelter because they were scared of being hurt by the abusers. So we made films within the center for 3 months, and it was very, very powerful to do that. So I'm going to start again, not that I've stopped in a formal, I'm actually starting an NGO called Record, and it's going to do that work and go to, not me, but the work will be going to organizations and teaching individuals and working in communities to teach video. And I'm mainly teaching people how to use their phones now, both to shoot and edit on. So, yeah.
So that means everybody can make a movie.
Yeah.
And as part of the documentation process of our lives, or what we're doing, or...
We're making movies anyway, especially in this media-saturated world. Just know how to do it. Learn the basic tools. It's no great mystery, really.
But what inspired you to start the second company, Two Training Wheels, alongside Two Spinning Wheels? What was that aha moment that said,
Yeah, it was like, let's do this teaching thing. Let's make it formalized, let's find a space, which we had.
And outside of the formal education system?
Outside of the formal education system. So like a community film school, basically.
And do you have a particular style, teaching methodology, creativity?
I do have a kind of a style, yeah.
What's your style?
It's like, go make shirts. Just go make it.
Don't think about it too much, just go make it, okay. So not what's the knife and just do it, this is go make it.
Yeah.
So Charles, one of the things that are quite interesting is, and it's part of our focus on Art in Our Mind and Copy, it's really a kind of a nice link there, because you're also doing work on archiving artists, yeah. So the one, James Matthews' Diaries of a Dissident Poet, you did a bit of one with Dope St. Jude, Keep in Touch, and then Shocking, the DJ, PE. Like you can't go through P without that DJ. So he rocked our world, Mr. Shakes, The Passion for Life. What's your thinking about that? What kind of personal sensibilities do you bring to your documentaries of filmmaking? What are your inspirations that come from that?
And then there was Shelley Barry.
Shelley Barry, apologies for missing that.
Yeah, so after the shorts, I made a series of films on artists, documentaries, and I made them because I felt like eventually these people are going to pass on, and there's no archive, there's no history of who they were and what they were thinking, and so I'm really like I'm fascinated by artists, and I'm fascinated by their minds and how they do what they do. So I don't ever have a script. I just hang out with them once a week, or as often as they can bear for me to be in their space. With James Matthews, I filmed over 3 years. And I just used to be like, when can I bring you lunch? Can I come on Tuesday? Okay, cool. We eat, I take out my camera and I'm like, James, what's going on? What's happening? And that's how I made the film. I ended up with hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. And actually ETV had commissioned this film, and they asked me to make a 26-minute film. And I made an hour and a half film. And they were like, no, that was not our deal. And it's taken all this time for me to like convince them to compromise on 48 minutes. So it should hit the screens this year. And And I actually came up to Joburg for the Josie Book Fair like last month, and it's been 4 years since the film had been completed. So I was like, James, let's do a last interview. So we start the film in 2018 and we go back to 2012. So that's great. And then with Shelley Barry, who was a friend of mine, she was an artist too. She was dying of cancer, and they told her she's got a few months to live. And she called me up and she said, girl, I'm dying, you better come make a movie about me. And she just summoned me to hospice, you know. And then I made the film, but then her family didn't want that footage to be seen. So then I made a film looking back on her life and not focusing on that last period, but I have it. And she wanted that archive because she was busy. She was like doing art and writing a book, you know. So I just believe, and actually now Pops Muhammad is probably the next artist that I'm going to chill with. And that's what I see it as. I go chill. And I really encourage all of those who want to make pieces, you know, make work around about the people you care about. Keep some kind of history of who they are, what they're doing, what they're thinking. Because it's going to be so valuable one day. And I also filmed Gladys Thomas. So Gladys Thomas is the co-author of Cry Rage, which was a book banned by the apartheid state, a poetry book banned by the apartheid state. And so I'd made the film about James, he was the co-author, and then Gladys was the other author, and Gladys really didn't want me to make this film, right? What do you want to do with me? I'm boring. And I was like, Gladys, you're not boring. So I spent a day with her, just one day, and I haven't edited it yet, but I've got it. And she says, you know, I'm going to be dead soon, no one's going to care about this shit film you're making here. And I was like, they will care. You know, so, and even when I watch, like, where we planted trees, there are two elders in this film that have since passed on. And so one of them was my auntie Thora. And she talks about the Group Areas Act and what a horrible time it was. And I had so much footage of her because I spoke, you know, for a long time, not just for the relevance of the film, that when she died, she gave her own obituary because I edited her, I was born here, and then I did this, and I was educated. So at her funeral, we put her on the screen, and she gave her own obituary. It was fabulous. And you know, and that precious now, and sometimes I'm passing by, and there's Auntie Thora talking on the screen. That is the power of video. It's the beauty of it for me. It's like, it preserves the way people smiled, spoke, laughed. It's such a precious gift, yeah.
Oh, Charles, thanks for that. Now, you always have a big square block of white on your wall. What's that about? Tell me that story of that white block.
Yeah, so I always paint a white square in any room that I'm in. A white rectangle, so a screen. And for me, it's a reminder to make stuff, because an empty canvas, you can put stuff on that empty canvas. So for me, it's a reminder to create and to think about the frame and think about what you're going to put in that frame. Because what you're going to put in that frame is very powerful. Yeah, so wherever I go, I just make that, I paint, it's cheap, a little bit of white paint, and that's like, remember. So I don't even really use it for projection, but I use it as a reminder to keep making and filling that frame, because what you're going to put in that frame can change things. It can change the way people see things.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, You portray also a range of femininities in your videos, right? So what does feminism or black feminism mean to you, representing a diversity of positions and voices?
Well, I think for me, when I first started making work, was like just trying to counter the invisibility of black feminists, of intersectional lives that deal with so many intersections. Because our cinema, our screens are white, ableist, patriarchal, and there's this dearth of our existence. Like it's not like we're not even here. And unfortunately, it's still largely like that. We're so influenced by Hollywood convention and a certain way of seeing, even the way in which films are shot. They are shot from a standing position, which is essentially ableist. And the way we're used to seeing the world is from the height of someone mostly standing. So the way I'm making work is to try and say, well, there's another way. There's another way of seeing, and there's another way of moving. And we are here. We are here, people, you know. And I'm very, very excited. There's like a new wave of black filmmakers coming through, feminist filmmakers, and we're going to have a very different cinema in 5-10 years' time. And I'm very excited about that.
Okay.
Most excited about that. I'm most excited about being part of the teachers. It's going to say to this generation, come, you know, and then they must document, you know, and they must tell our stories. Very important.
Okay, we're on the second last part. So this is the Marcel Probe and the Provo. We're doing a James Lipton Art in Our Mind questionnaire.
Oh God.
Quick, no? It's like snappy. We're not too, so don't think too long about it. How do you define art?
I feel like I'm in Oprah's masterclass.
Charlene, why are you laughing at me?
Art is
Okay, it must be snappy.
a unique view of seeing the world and reflecting on the world.
What delights you instantly?
Roast potatoes.
What's your pet peeve? What's your pet peeve generally?
I'm very impatient.
Your least favorite color? You don't have one?
I don't, yeah, nothing comes to mind.
Okay.
Maybe purple. Sorry, you call.
Perfect. Do you have a favorite book or writer? Literary character? Who would that be?
Let me think about that. I can't tell you the
real one.
I think Lao Tzu's Book of Change.
Okay. Change a little faster, no?
Shit, man, because you asked me hectic stuff here. I can't be fast.
Okay. Who's your favorite artist?
Frida Kahlo one time.
Who's your heroine?
My heroine, I think that would be Mom, hey? That would be Pam.
What's erotica for you as a disabled person?
Ooh. I guess what's erotica for me? Touch and the eyes. It's all in the eyes.
Okay, you spoke about your favorite, and your favorite food beyond potatoes?
Curry.
Okay, what's a meal for you?
Sugar bean curries, roti, pumpkin, corn fritters. Yeah, that would be like last meal if I die.
And what's
My mom's making it for me tomorrow.
And what kind of songs like really get you going?
Oh, I'm a love song queen, hey? I'm like a love song queen, like soppy love songs. Shirley Bassey on a good day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you could wish any artwork in your life, which one would you want to have?
If I could, sorry?
If you could wish some artwork in your life, if you could get artwork, what's that one that you'd like to have?
I would like to have quite a bit of Bernie Saul's work, actually.
Okay. Okay, I'm not giving that one away in the back. Which artist, artwork, art movement do you just despise?
Nah, I don't despise anything, eh?
Oh, okay. Good cut.
That's a strong word.
That's a strong word, yeah. If we have to ask it, it's part of the deal. Your favorite word?
Love.
Your least favorite word?
Hate.
What turns you on?
The mind.
And what turns you off? What turns you off?
Rudeness.
What makes you laugh?
Oh, just lots of things. Just I can laugh just randomly. You know?
You don't need a reason.
No, I don't need it.
Your best virtue?
I think I'm kind.
Your idea of misery?
My personal idea is seeing inequality in the world.
And sound and noise that you just love to hear?
Rain on a tin roof.
And the sound you just hate?
Sirens.
Okay, your favorite swear word?
Fuck.
Okay, if you were to choose a profession other than the one that you have, what would you like to attempt?
I'd either be a DJ or a chef.
And the one you wouldn't want to be?
I wouldn't be able to be a doctor. All that blood.
Okay. And if your mood were the weather forecast for this year, you would be?
Balmy spring day.
Okay. How would you like to die if you had a choice?
Oh, I need really, really good Egyptian cotton, and I need to
And what?
good Egyptian cotton, lots of flowers, and at least 1 week to say goodbye to everyone while eating delicious food every day.
Cool. And if heaven exists, and for you it does exist, you've seen it, right? What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
Sure.
God is.
That love is true. That's it.
That's it. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
How did that feel?
Yeah, no, I feel like my soul has been laid bare.
Okay, we're going to open up to everyone, and anybody who has a question, please feel free. We're invited to ask a statement, a comment. You can just enter.
Thank you. I feel I didn't even know how hungry I was for that. Thank you so much. Perhaps this should be the second or third or fourth question, but anyway. I'm very interested in this question of eroticism, because I think you've been
very important in reframing the black body, the wounded body, the lesbian body, the body on film. And I'm wondering how you dealt with the challenge of filming sex, filming desire, filming eroticism, when there are so many images that are so burdening of representing this, and yet it is so important, for all kinds of reasons. And I'm really intrigued, as a poetic filmmaker, what does that mean to render for us who also desire to see it portrayed in some other way, sexuality and eroticism?
Thank you very much, Shelley. I first want to echo the point that you also just made at the end about what you like, what you hear, love. From a theoretical point of view, I would like to find out how to invite young people to
to appreciate the narrative that, almost like the perspective that we are ushering, when the dominant way of looking at things is really, it's almost like I would say clustered with this, I think, this systematic power that was mentioned in the morning. How do you make it inviting?
I wanted to find out what was the little girl's favorite song that night.
We can hear it if we unmute. Sorry.
Shall we unmute it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Let's unmute it. This high, no? Okay.
In the beginning, she's not dancing, so you may have to wait until she starts. Should I answer the questions while we get the little girl? So, Habiba, yeah, I mean, I think the celebration of bodies touching for me is very important, and you know, because also when we see queer bodies on screen, it's often framed in an attempt at eroticism, and that's all it's about. It's like, oh, this is how lesbians do it, this is how whatever. So for me, it's very important to frame that in a way that's authentic and in a way that celebrates love and touch and connection. So when I direct scenes like that, I will ask, in this case it was with the women, to just explore each other in a way that felt real to them. And yeah, I mean, there's such a fine line between it being gratuitous and it being something that you have to insert into a screen that denies that kind of love. So for me, it's very important to put it in there. Even the masturbation scene, I can't believe I did that shit because I'm so embarrassed about it now. But I remember that was a political choice for me. And I always remember that. It's very important because where do you see people with disabilities touching themselves in a way that brings them pleasure or touching someone else? You don't see it. We are either in hospitals or we're some tragic figure or we've just been hijacked. That's how we are portrayed on screen. So you don't really get any sense of people enjoying life in any way or enjoying each other's bodies in any way. Your question about the young people. I think young people, for me, that's where teaching comes in. That's where teaching comes in because, and at the moment I'm teaching them how we have been influenced by the conventions of Hollywood and still are. In fact, our films are made, many of our films are made by the book convention. You can actually follow the model. You know, by 15 minutes, this is going to happen. This is how it's going to end. These are, and once you start teaching students that and allowing them to deconstruct that model, and most importantly, to make work that speaks to that model and that creates a sense of their idea of what is African cinema, how is the way that we will tell our stories, that is not following some road model that's been imposed on us. So I ask them to make something in a way that only they are seeing it. I'll say, like, film that cup in a way we've never seen a cup. You know, film it from your perspective in a way we haven't ever seen it before. Just to teach them that there are so multiple ways of creating things, making things, and seeing things. Is the young girl ready for us? Yes. out. Checking me out. taken over. She got camera now. Now you know the song. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to end it now. Thank you, Habiba, for that, and everybody else for the intimacy, because it's actually a question that I forgot, so thank you. I must say, okay, so we're closing down now this session. Shelley will be available until this evening, and then you can chat to her directly. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you very much for being part of this.
Yes, thank you very much, Beverley and Shelley. A reminder again that you can pre-order Shelley's DVDs and videos.